Nobody's coming to save you. That's the first thing you need to understand. Not your parents, not your friends, not the universe, not fate. You're alone in this, and that's not a tragedy. The cost of becoming yourself starts with accepting that truth. You're the only one responsible for what happens next. Not responsible for what happened to you. Not responsible for the cards you were dealt, but absolutely responsible for what you do with them. That weight sits heavy on some people. They'd rather stay victims because victims don't have to do anything. Victims get to complain, get to point fingers, get to explain why their life is the way it is and have everyone nod sympathetically. You want to become yourself? Then you give up the victim card. You stop using your past as an explanation for your present. You stop blaming your circumstances for your choices. You look at where you are, accept that it's partly your doing, and decide what you're going to do about it. That decision costs you the comfort of powerlessness, because once you accept power over your life, you can't hide anymore. Most people are hiding. They're going through the motions, waking up, going to work they don't care about, coming home, numbing themselves with whatever helps them forget that they're not living, just existing. They've accepted that this is as good as it gets. They've made peace with mediocrity. They've convinced themselves that wanting more is greedy or unrealistic or not meant for people like them. That's the lie, the big one, that some people are meant for greatness and others aren't, that some people have what it takes and others don't. Everyone has what it takes. What they don't have is the willingness to pay the price, because the price isn't talent, it's not luck, it's not connections. It's the willingness to be uncomfortable for as long as it takes to get where you're going. Discomfort is the cost nobody talks about. They talk about hard work like it's just about hours. It's not. It's about doing things that make you want to quit. It's about pushing when your body says stop. It's about continuing when your mind says this isn't working. It's about showing up on the days when you don't see progress, when you don't feel motivated, when you're tired and sore and starting to doubt whether any of this matters. Those are the days that count, not the days when you feel good. Anyone can show up when they feel good. The version of you that achieves something meaningful shows up when they feel terrible, when they'd rather do anything else, when quitting would be justified and understandable. They show up anyway, not because they're superhuman, because they've decided that the discomfort of the work is better than the discomfort of staying the same. Staying the same has its own discomfort. People don't think about that. They think staying where they are is the safe choice. It's not safe. It's slow death. It's watching years pass and realizing you're the same person with the same problems, having the same conversations. It's looking at yourself at 40, 50, 60, and seeing someone who never tried, who never risked, who never found out what they were capable of because they were too scared to test themselves. That regret is heavier than any discomfort you'll face in the process of becoming. But you can't see that when you're young. When you're young, the future feels infinite. You think you have time. You think you'll start tomorrow, next week, next year, when conditions are better, when you feel ready. When the timing is right, the timing is never right. You're never ready. The conditions never improve on their own. You improve them by starting. Starting costs you the fantasy that someday, somehow, things will just fall into place. That you'll wake up one morning and suddenly have discipline, suddenly have focus, suddenly have the body or the business or the life you want. That's not real. What's real is the daily grind of doing small things consistently until they compound into something significant. But people don't want to hear that. They want the overnight success story, the breakthrough moment, the one decision that changed everything. Those moments exist, but they're not the beginning. They're the result of months or years of invisible work, of getting up early, of staying late, of saying no to distractions, of choosing the hard thing over and over until the hard thing becomes normal. That's what builds the foundation for the breakthrough. But nobody sees that part. They only see the result and assume it came easy. Nothing worth having comes easy. If it was easy, everyone would have it. The fact that most people don't have what you want should tell you something. It's available. It's possible. But most people quit before they get there. They quit when it gets hard, when it gets boring, when they stop seeing immediate results. They quit right before the breakthrough because they can't see how close they are. You don't get to know how close you are. That's part of the cost. You have to keep going without knowing if you're 1 day away or 1 year away from the result you're chasing. You have to trust the process when the process isn't giving you feedback. You have to believe you're making progress even when you can't see it. That faith is expensive. It costs you certainty. It costs you the comfort of knowing. You have to move forward in the dark and trust that you're heading in the right direction. Most people need proof before they commit. They want to see results before they go all in. That's backwards. You commit first. You go all in. Then the results come. But there's a gap between the commitment and the results. In that gap, you're working hard with nothing to show for it. That gap tests everything. Your commitment, your discipline, your belief in yourself. Most people fail the test because they can't handle working without immediate reward. We've been trained for immediate reward. You press a button, something happens instantly. You send a message, you get a response in seconds. You order food, it shows up in minutes. Everything is optimized for speed, for convenience, for immediate gratification. Then you try to build something real and it doesn't work that way. You put in effort and nothing happens. You work hard and see no change. Your brain doesn't know what to do with that. It's used to instant feedback. When the feedback doesn't come, it assumes the effort is wasted. The effort is never wasted. Even when you can't see results, you're building something underneath. You're developing the capacity to do hard things. You're training your mind to push past discomfort. You're proving to yourself that you can stick with something when it's not fun anymore. That's the real transformation, not the external results. The internal shift where you become someone who doesn't quit. Becoming someone who doesn't quit costs you the option to quit. Sounds obvious, but think about it. When things get hard, you've always had the escape hatch. You could stop. You could go back to what's comfortable. You could tell yourself you gave it a shot and it didn't work out. That escape hatch is your safety net. Taking it away means if things get hard, you don't have an out. You have to figure it out. You have to solve the problem. You have to push through. That's terrifying for people who've built their identity around quitting when things get uncomfortable. They've always had the option to bail. They've always preserved their ability to stop if it gets too hard. Taking that option away means they actually have to face the hard parts. They have to do the thing they've been avoiding. They have to confront the fact that the only thing standing between them and what they want is their unwillingness to be uncomfortable. Comfort is killing you. Not physically, slowly, quietly, in ways you don't notice until years have passed and you realize you're the exact same person you were 5 years ago. Same job, same body, same relationships, same problems. Nothing changed because you prioritized comfort over growth. You chose the familiar over the unknown. You picked safety over risk. And safety feels smart until you realize it kept you in a cage. The cage isn't locked. It never was. You can walk out anytime, but walking out means leaving behind everything familiar. The predictable routine, the known quantity, the life you've built that's comfortable even if it's not fulfilling. Leaving that behind feels like loss, like you're giving up something valuable. You're not. You're trading something comfortable for something meaningful, but in the moment of transition, all you feel is the loss. That's the cost, feeling like you're losing when you're actually gaining. feeling like you're falling apart when you're actually coming together, feeling like you're moving backwards when you're moving forward in a direction that's unfamiliar. Your brain can't tell the difference between unfamiliar and wrong. It just knows this doesn't feel like what you usually do, so it panics. It tells you to go back. It creates anxiety and doubt and fear to push you back toward the familiar. You have to move through that, not around it. Through it, feel the anxiety and move anyway. Feel the doubt and move anyway. Feel the fear and move anyway. Because on the other side of those feelings is the version of you that doesn't let feelings dictate actions. The version that feels fear and does the thing anyway. That's who you're becoming. Someone who doesn't need to feel ready, doesn't need to feel confident, doesn't need to feel motivated, just needs to decide and act. Decision without action is just dreaming. Everyone dreams. Everyone has ideas. Everyone thinks about what they'd do if circumstances were different. The people who actually do something aren't smarter, aren't more talented, aren't luckier. They just act. They take the idea and move it from their head into reality. They start before they're ready. They build before they have all the answers. They move forward even when they can't see the full path. That movement costs you the illusion of control. You want to plan everything, map it all out, know exactly how it's going to go before you start. That's not possible. You can plan the first step, maybe the second. After that, you're figuring it out as you go. You're adapting, you're learning, you're making mistakes and correcting course. That's how it actually works. But admitting that means admitting you don't have control. You're not the master strategist with the perfect plan. You're someone taking a risk and hoping it works out. Hope isn't a strategy, but it's necessary. You need to believe this could work even when you have no proof. You need to trust yourself even when you've failed before. You need to maintain conviction even when people around you think you're wasting your time. That belief in the face of uncertainty is what separates the people who build something from the people who just talk about building something. Talking is free. Planning is free. Dreaming is free. Action costs you time, energy, focus, and the risk of public failure. Most people aren't willing to pay that. They'd rather keep their dreams theoretical so they never have to face the reality of whether they can actually pull it off. They protect their ego by never testing it. They stay in the safe zone where they can always say, I could do that if I wanted to, without ever having to prove it. You want to become yourself? Then you stop protecting your ego. You put yourself in situations where you might fail, where people might judge you, where you might look foolish or incompetent or unprepared. You do it anyway, not because you enjoy embarrassment, because growth requires you to attempt things you're not good at yet. And when you're not good at something, you look bad doing it. That's the cost. Looking bad on your way to getting good. Everyone who's good at anything was terrible at it first. Everyone. But most people can't handle being terrible. They try something once, realize they're not immediately good at it, and quit. They interpret their lack of immediate success as evidence that they're not meant to do this thing. That's not how it works. You're not meant to be anything. You become what you're willing to work at, what you're willing to be bad at long enough to get decent, what you're willing to practice when practice is frustrating and slow and unrewarding. Practice costs you the instant gratification of being good now. You have to delay. You have to invest hours into something that doesn't produce visible results yet. You have to trust that the accumulation of those hours will eventually matter. That's faith. And faith is hard to maintain when you're alone in your room practicing something and seeing no improvement. When you're putting in work and nobody notices. When you're grinding and there's no applause, no recognition, no external validation that you're on the right track. External validation would be nice. It would make this easier. But you don't get it in the beginning. You get it after you've made it, after you've put in the work, after you've built something that people can see and recognize. Before that, you're invisible. You're working in obscurity. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. Nobody's cheering you on. It's just you and your commitment and the question of whether that's enough. For most people, it's not enough. They need the audience. They need the likes and comments and validation that they're doing something worthwhile. Without that external feedback, they lose motivation. They stop showing up. They convince themselves it doesn't matter because if it mattered, people would care. But people only care after you've won. While you're building, you're alone. That loneliness is the cost. Working in the dark, building in silence, pushing forward when nobody's paying attention. That's where character gets built. Not on stage, not when people are watching. In the private moments when you choose to show up even though nobody would know if you didn't. When you do the work even though you could skip it and nothing would change today. Those moments don't feel significant. They feel like nothing, but they're everything. Because what you do when nobody's watching determines what you are when everyone is watching. Who you are in private is who you actually are. The public version is just a performance, a highlight reel. The real you shows up when you're alone, when there's no pressure to impress anyone, when you can take the easy route and nobody would know. That's the test. Do you do the right thing when the wrong thing is available and consequence-free? Do you keep your word to yourself when breaking it would be easier? Do you honor your commitments when nobody else knows you made them? Most people don't. They make promises to themselves and break them constantly. I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow comes and they push it to next week. I'll do it when I have more time. They have time. They just spend it on things that don't matter. I'll begin when I feel ready. They never feel ready, so they never begin. These broken promises accumulate. They build a relationship with yourself where you can't be trusted, where you say things but don't mean them, where your word, even to yourself, is worthless. That's a hard way to live. Not trusting yourself, knowing that when you commit to something, there's a good chance you'll quit. Knowing that your motivation will fade and your discipline won't pick up the slack because you never built any. Knowing that next year you'll probably be in the same place making the same promises you're making now. That knowing eats at you, not loudly, quietly, in the background. A constant reminder that you're capable of more but unwilling to do what's required to get there. What's required isn't complicated. It's simple, just not easy. Show up, do the work, be consistent, repeat until results appear. That's it. No secret formula. No hidden strategy. Just persistent, consistent effort directed at a clear goal. But people complicate it because complicated gives them an excuse. I don't know the right method. I'm not sure which approach to take. I need to do more research. They're stalling, hiding behind the need for perfect information when what they actually need is imperfect action. Imperfect action beats perfect planning every time, because action creates feedback. You try something, it works or it doesn't. You adjust. You try again. That cycle of attempting, learning, and adjusting is how you make progress. Planning doesn't create feedback. It just creates more plans. You can plan forever and never move forward. You can research forever and never know enough. At some point, you have to close the laptop, step into the arena, and see what happens. What happens is usually failure, not dramatic, catastrophic failure. Small failure. You try something and it doesn't work quite right. You attempt a new approach and it's harder than expected. You push yourself and fall short of your goal. That's normal. That's part of the process. But it feels personal. It feels like evidence that you're not cut out for this. It's not. It's evidence that you're learning, that you're in the game, that you're actually doing something instead of just thinking about doing something. Failure costs you the fantasy of perfect execution. You wanted this to go smoothly. You wanted to be good at it immediately. You wanted to skip the messy middle part where you're figuring it out. You don't get to skip it. Everyone goes through it. The difference is some people use failure as feedback and others use it as an excuse to quit. The quitters say, "See, I tried and it didn't work." The builders say, "That didn't work, let me try something else." Same failure, different response. The response is everything. You can't control what happens. You can't control if your first attempt succeeds. You can control what you do next. Do you quit? Do you adjust? Do you learn? Do you try again with new information? That choice, made repeatedly, determines whether you eventually succeed or stay where you are forever. Forever is a long time to stay stuck, but that's what happens when you let failure stop you. You stay in the same place, same problems, same limitations, same life. Years pass, nothing changes. You get older but not better. You accumulate age without accumulating growth, and somewhere deep down, you know you could have been more, done more, built more, but you weren't willing to fail enough times to figure it out. The people who make it aren't smarter, they just failed more. They tried more approaches, they got knocked down more times, they learned more lessons the hard way, they paid the tuition in mistakes and kept going. That's the real cost, not the first failure, the willingness to fail repeatedly, to be wrong over and over, to look foolish again and again, to keep trying when you've already failed 10 times and have no guarantee the 11th attempt will work. Most people tap out after a few failures. They decide they gave it a shot. They can tell themselves they tried. They can maintain the story that they could have made it if they'd kept going. But they didn't keep going, so they'll never know. They'll spend the rest of their life wondering what would have happened if they'd pushed a little harder, tried a little longer, committed a little deeper. That wondering is its own cost. The cost of quitting, the cost of giving up on yourself. Giving up on yourself is easy. It's socially acceptable. People will understand. They'll sympathize. They'll agree that you gave it your best shot. They'll reinforce your decision to quit because your quitting makes them feel better about their own quitting. Nobody wants to watch someone else persist when they've given up. Your persistence is a mirror showing them what they could do if they wanted to badly enough. So they'll discourage you. Not directly, subtly. Are you sure you want to keep doing this? Maybe it's time to be realistic. You've already tried so hard. They're not trying to help you. They're trying to make themselves feel better. Because if you quit too, then quitting is normal. It's what reasonable people do. But if you keep going, if you succeed, then they have to face the fact that they quit too early, that the opportunity was there and they walked away from it. You can't let their comfort determine your commitment. You can't let their limitations define your potential. You can't let their fear keep you playing small. This is your life. Your one chance to see what you're capable of. You don't get another shot. You don't get to come back in 20 years and try again with the same energy, the same time, the same opportunities. What you have is now, this moment, this day, this year. What you do with it determines what your life becomes. Your life becomes what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally do, not what you do when you feel like it, what you do consistently, day after day, week after week, month after month. The small actions that don't seem to matter in the moment but compound over time into something significant. That compound interest is how ordinary people build extraordinary results, not through dramatic gestures, through boring consistency. Consistency costs you excitement. It costs you variety. It costs you the thrill of always doing something new. Because consistency is repetition. It's doing the same things over and over even when they're not fun anymore. Even when they're tedious. Even when you're so sick of the routine you could scream. You do it anyway. Because the routine is what produces results. The excitement is what produces good stories but no actual progress. You have to choose. Exciting life or effective life. Most people chase exciting. They jump from thing to thing looking for the next rush. They start projects and abandon them when the newness wears off. They're always beginning but never finishing, because finishing requires pushing through the boring middle where there's no excitement left. Just work. Hard, repetitive, unglamorous work that nobody celebrates. That work is where transformation happens. Not in the beginning when everything is new and you're fired up. Not at the end when you're seeing results and feeling validated. In the middle, the long, slow middle where you're grinding with no guarantee it'll pay off. Where you're showing up day after day and seeing no visible change. Where you're starting to doubt whether any of this matters. That's where you find out what you're made of. Most people aren't made of much. They fold under pressure. They quit when it gets hard. They give up when they stop seeing progress. They let discomfort dictate their decisions. They're slaves to how they feel in the moment. If they feel motivated, they work. If they don't, they don't. That's not how you build anything lasting. That's how you stay stuck in patterns you hate but can't break. Breaking patterns costs you the familiar, even if the familiar is dysfunction, even if it's making you miserable. It's known, it's predictable, you know how to operate within it. Breaking it means stepping into unknown territory, new behaviors, new routines, new ways of thinking. Your brain hates that. Your brain wants to keep you alive, not help you grow. Alive means familiar. Growth means risk. So your brain will fight you every step of the way. The fight feels like resistance, like you can't do it, like something is stopping you. Nothing is stopping you except your own nervous system trying to keep you safe. Safe means unchanged. Growth requires you to override that safety mechanism, to acknowledge the fear and move anyway, to feel the resistance and push through it, to recognize that the discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something different. Different is what you need. You can't get different results doing the same things. You can't become someone new using old patterns. You have to change, and change is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. Your nervous system is literally designed to resist it. So feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean you're off track. It means you're on exactly the right track. You're just so used to comfort that anything else feels wrong. Comfort has taught you that feelings are facts, that if something feels wrong, it is wrong. That's not true. Feelings are just data. They're your nervous system's best guess at what's happening based on past experience. But your past experience is why you're stuck. Your past patterns are what created your current reality. Trusting those same feelings that got you here isn't going to get you somewhere better. You need new data, new experiences, new evidence that you can do hard things, that you can push past discomfort, that you can handle more than you think. But you only get that evidence by doing the things you're not sure you can do, by attempting what scares you, by stepping into situations where you might fail. That's how you build confidence. Not by thinking about it, by proving to yourself through action that you're capable. Capability isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Through repetition, through attempting and failing and learning and trying again, through gradually expanding what you believe you can handle. Most people never test their limits. They operate well within their comfort zone and assume that's their maximum. It's not. It's just the edge of what they've been willing to try. Your actual maximum is miles beyond where you think it is, but you'll never know unless you push, unless you test yourself, unless you go to the edge of your capacity and then keep pushing. That's where growth lives. Not in the zone where you're comfortable and capable, in the zone where you're uncertain and struggling and not sure if you can handle this. That's the zone that transforms you. Most people avoid that zone their entire life. They stay where it's safe, where they know they can succeed, where failure isn't possible because they're not attempting anything difficult. That safety keeps them small, keeps them limited, keeps them from ever finding out what they're actually capable of. And they'll die never knowing, never testing, never pushing, never trying to see how far they could go if they really committed. That's the ultimate cost. Not the cost of trying, the cost of not trying, the cost of playing it safe, the cost of protecting yourself from failure so effectively that you also protect yourself from success. The cost of choosing comfort over growth for so long that growth stops being an option. The cost of waking up one day and realizing you're exactly where you were 5 years ago because you've been treading water instead of swimming. Swimming is hard. It requires effort. You get tired. You might go under. But treading water is exhausting in its own way. You're expending energy just to stay in place, to not drown. But you're not going anywhere. You're not getting closer to shore. You're just surviving, staying afloat. And you can do that for years, decades. A whole life spent treading water, using all your energy just to maintain, never actually progressing toward anything. The cost of becoming yourself is the decision to stop treading water and start swimming, even though swimming is harder, even though you might go under, even though shore looks far away and you're not sure you can make it. You swim anyway, because anything is better than staying in the middle of the ocean going nowhere. Because the risk of trying and failing is better than the certainty of staying stuck. Because you'd rather find out what you're capable of than spend your life wondering. That decision changes everything. Not immediately, eventually. When you decide you're done settling, done accepting less than you want, done letting fear and comfort and other people's opinions determine what you do. When you decide that becoming yourself, the actual you, the version you know is possible, matters more than staying safe. That's when transformation starts. Not when conditions are perfect. When you decide they don't need to be. If it hurts, good. Keep going. That pain you're feeling right now, that's not your enemy. That's your teacher. That's your guide. That's the signal that you're actually doing something meaningful. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Anything worth having in life requires you to go through some level of suffering to get it. There's no way around it. There's no shortcut. There's no hack that's gonna let you skip the hard parts. The only way out is through. Think about the last time you really pushed yourself. I'm not talking about going through the motions. I'm talking about the moment where you thought you couldn't take another step, lift another rep, work another hour, and then somehow you found a way to keep going anyway. Remember how that felt? Not just the accomplishment afterward, but the actual moment of pushing through. There was something raw about it, something real. That's because in that moment, you were confronting the most fundamental question of human existence. Are you going to let your circumstances control you, or are you going to control your circumstances? Every single day, life is testing you. It's putting obstacles in your path to see what you're made of. And most people fail these tests. They fail them repeatedly. They fail them so many times that eventually they stop even trying. They convince themselves that they're not capable. They tell themselves stories about why they can't do things. They build elaborate justifications for their own limitations. And then they wonder why their life never changes. But you're different. You have to be different. There's still that part of you that refuses to settle. That part of you that knows you're capable of more. That part of you that's tired of making excuses and ready to make moves. The question is, are you going to listen to that voice, or are you going to let it get drowned out by all the noise? Pain is information. When your body hurts during a workout, it's telling you that you're breaking down muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger. When your mind hurts from studying or learning something difficult, it's telling you that you're literally rewiring your neural pathways and expanding your capacity. When your emotions hurt from facing uncomfortable truths about yourself, it's telling you that you're growing beyond the person you used to be. The pain isn't the problem. Your relationship with pain is the problem. We live in a world that's obsessed with comfort. Everyone's trying to make everything easier, smoother, more convenient. And there's nothing wrong with efficiency. But somewhere along the way, we started believing that comfort was the goal. We started thinking that the point of life was to eliminate all struggle, all difficulty, all pain, and that's a trap. Because when you make comfort your primary objective, you stop growing, you stop evolving, you become soft, and the world doesn't reward soft people. It rewards people who can take hits and keep moving forward. You want to know why most people never achieve their goals? It's not because they don't set them. Most people have goals, they have dreams, they have visions of who they want to become and what they want to accomplish. But when it comes time to do the actual work, when it comes time to face the actual pain that transformation requires, they fold, they quit, they give up, and then they spend the rest of their lives wondering what could have been. There's a moment that happens to everyone who's trying to change their life. It's the moment where continuing forward becomes harder than staying where you are. Your old habits are screaming at you. Your old patterns are pulling at you. Your old identity is fighting to survive. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can give in to that pull and go back to who you were, or you can push through the resistance and become who you're supposed to be. That moment is everything. That moment determines your entire trajectory. The people who make it through that moment understand something crucial. Temporary pain is the price of permanent change. You can't transform without experiencing discomfort. You can't evolve without facing resistance. You can't become a new version of yourself while clinging to the comfort of who you used to be. Something has to die for something new to be born. Your old self has to die for your new self to emerge, and that process hurts. It's supposed to hurt. But here's what most people don't realize. You can actually learn to reframe that pain. You can train yourself to interpret discomfort as a positive signal instead of a negative one. When you're tired, instead of thinking I need to stop, you can think I'm getting stronger. When you're uncomfortable, instead of thinking this is too hard, you can think this is exactly what I need. When you're facing resistance, instead of thinking maybe this isn't for me, you can think this is the barrier that's keeping everyone else out. Every worthwhile destination has a difficult path leading to it. That's by design. That's not a bug. That's a feature. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. And if everyone did it, it wouldn't be valuable. The difficulty is what creates the value. The struggle is what makes the achievement meaningful. The pain is what transforms the journey from a simple task into a defining moment of your character. Think about the things you're most proud of in your life. I guarantee they didn't come easy. I guarantee there were moments where you wanted to quit, moments where you doubted yourself, moments where you felt like you couldn't possibly continue, but you did continue. And now those experiences are part of your identity. They're part of what makes you who you are. That's the power of pushing through pain. It doesn't just give you the external result you're chasing. It fundamentally changes who you are on the inside. Your body is designed to adapt. Your mind is designed to adapt. Your entire being is designed to respond to the challenges you place in front of it. But adaptation only happens when you push beyond your current capacity. If you keep doing what's comfortable, if you keep staying in your current range, you'll never trigger the adaptation response. You'll never force your system to upgrade itself. You have to create stress. You have to create tension. You have to create discomfort. That's how growth works. And this applies to every area of your life. It applies physically when you're training your body. It applies mentally when you're expanding your knowledge. It applies emotionally when you're working through your psychological barriers. It applies socially when you're putting yourself in situations that challenge you. It applies professionally when you're taking on responsibilities that stretch you. Pain is the universal signal that you're operating at your edge. And your edge is exactly where you need to be if you want to expand. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding their edge. They know roughly where their limits are, and they make sure to stay safely within them. They never test themselves. They never push themselves. They never discover what they're actually capable of. And then they die having lived a fraction of the life they could have lived. They die with their potential still locked inside them. They die without ever knowing what they truly were. Don't let that be you. Don't live a life of comfort and regret. Don't choose temporary ease over permanent growth. Don't avoid pain today only to feel the much deeper pain tomorrow of knowing you never became who you could have been. That regret, that knowledge that you wasted your potential, that you played it safe, that you chose comfort over growth, that's a pain that never goes away. That's the pain that eats at you for the rest of your life. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret is permanent. You get to choose which one you want to experience. And make no mistake, you're choosing right now. Every day that you avoid discomfort, every day that you choose the easy path, every day that you quit when things get hard, you're choosing regret. You're choosing to be someone who had potential but never did anything with it. You're choosing to be someone who had dreams but never pursued them. You're choosing to be someone who wanted more but wasn't willing to pay the price. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can make a different choice. You can choose to embrace the pain. You can choose to see it as a necessary part of the process. You can choose to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And when you make that choice consistently, when you develop that capacity to push through discomfort, something incredible happens. You become unstoppable. Because here's the thing about pain, it's finite. No matter how much something hurts, it eventually ends. The workout ends. The work session ends. The uncomfortable conversation ends. The difficult period of your life ends. Pain is temporary, but the person you become by pushing through pain, that's permanent. The strength you build, the character you develop, the confidence you gain, those things stay with you. Those things compound over time. Those things become the foundation of everything else you accomplish. You know what's interesting about people who have achieved extraordinary things? They don't have some special ability to avoid pain. They just have a different relationship with it. They've learned to interpret pain differently. When they feel resistance, they know they're on the right path. When they feel uncomfortable, they know they're growing. When they feel like quitting, they know they're at the exact moment that will define them. They've trained themselves to respond to pain by leaning into it rather than running from it. And that's a skill you can develop. That's not something you're born with or without. That's something you practice. Every time you feel discomfort and push through it anyway, you're building that skill. Every time you want to quit and you keep going, you're strengthening that capacity. Every time you face your fear and do the thing anyway, you're rewiring your relationship with struggle. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. But most people never develop this skill because they never give themselves the opportunity. They're so committed to avoiding discomfort that they never build any tolerance for it. They've spent their whole lives taking the path of least resistance, and then they wonder why they have no resilience. They've never trained themselves to push through hard things, and then they're shocked when they can't handle adversity. You can't develop strength without resistance. You can't develop endurance without pushing your limits. You can't develop mental toughness without facing mental challenges. The universe doesn't reward potential. It rewards action. It doesn't matter how talented you are if you're not willing to do the work. It doesn't matter how much potential you have if you quit when things get difficult. The only thing that matters is what you actually do when you're facing resistance. Do you retreat or do you advance? Do you quit or do you persist? Do you make excuses or do you make progress? Every single day, you're either moving forward or you're moving backward. There's no standing still. You're either getting stronger or you're getting weaker. You're either building momentum or you're losing it. You're either becoming more of who you want to be or you're slipping back into who you used to be. And the difference between those two directions often comes down to your willingness to embrace discomfort. When you're tired and you push through anyway, you're moving forward. When you're scared and you take action anyway, you're moving forward. When you're uncomfortable and you lean into it anyway, you're moving forward. But when you're tired and you give yourself an easy out, you're moving backward. When you're scared and you let that fear stop you, you're moving backward. When you're uncomfortable and you retreat to safety, you're moving backward. The path forward is always harder than the path backward. That's just reality. Growing is harder than staying the same. Changing is harder than remaining comfortable. Becoming someone new is harder than being who you've always been. But the path backward leads to a place you don't want to go. It leads to mediocrity. It leads to regret. It leads to a life half-lived. And the path forward, as difficult as it is, leads to the only place worth going, the full expression of your potential. You have to decide what you want more, comfort now or growth forever, because you can't have both. You can't stay comfortable and expect to transform. You can't avoid struggle and expect to build strength. You can't eliminate all pain from your life and expect to accomplish anything meaningful. The choice is yours, but you have to make it consciously. You have to decide deliberately, and then you have to commit to that decision even when it gets hard, especially when it gets hard, because it will get hard. There will be days when you don't feel motivated. There will be days when the pain feels like too much. There will be days when you question whether it's worth it. And on those days, you can't rely on motivation. You can't rely on inspiration. You can't rely on feeling good. You have to rely on your commitment. You have to rely on your discipline. You have to rely on the decision you made when you were clear-headed about who you want to become. That's what separates people who achieve their goals from people who just talk about them. The people who achieve their goals have made a non-negotiable commitment to their future self. They've decided that no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much it hurts, they're going to keep moving forward. They've removed the option of quitting from their mind. They've burned the ships. They've cut off their retreat. They've made going forward the only option. And when you do that, when you truly commit at that level, something shifts. You stop wasting mental energy debating whether you should continue. You stop having those internal negotiations about whether it's worth it. You stop questioning your path every time things get difficult. You just do what needs to be done. You keep putting one foot in front of the other. You keep showing up. You keep pushing through. And that consistency, that relentless forward motion, that's what creates extraordinary results. The problem is that most people keep one foot in and one foot out. They kind of want to change, but they also kind of want to stay comfortable. They sort of want to grow, but they also sort of want to avoid pain. They're trying to have it both ways. And when you try to have it both ways, you end up with nothing. You end up stuck in the middle. Not really growing, but not really comfortable either. You end up in this limbo where you're dissatisfied with where you are, but not willing to do what it takes to get somewhere else. You have to go all in. You have to fully commit. You have to make peace with the fact that transformation is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. It's going to challenge you in ways you can't even imagine right now. But that's the whole point. If it didn't challenge you, it wouldn't change you. If it didn't push you, it wouldn't grow you. If it didn't hurt, it wouldn't be worth doing. Think about what you're capable of when you actually apply yourself. Think about what you've already accomplished when you stopped making excuses and started taking action. Think about who you become when you push past your perceived limits. You know that person. You've met that person. That person shows up when you're faced with a real challenge and you decide to face it head on. That person is who you actually are underneath all the excuses and fears and doubts. But that person only emerges when you create the conditions for them to emerge. And the condition is always the same. You have to be willing to experience discomfort. You have to be willing to face pain. You have to be willing to push yourself beyond what feels safe or easy or comfortable. That's the price of admission. That's what it costs to access your real capabilities. And here's what nobody tells you. Once you do it once you push through real pain and come out the other side, it changes everything. Because you realize that you're capable of so much more than you thought. You realize that most of your limits were self-imposed. You realize that the thing holding you back wasn't your circumstances or your genetics or your past. It was your willingness to experience discomfort. And once you develop that willingness, once you build that tolerance, the game completely changes. Now you can take on challenges that used to seem impossible. Now you can pursue goals that used to seem out of reach. Now you can become the person you used to only dream about being. Because you've removed the main obstacle. You've removed your own resistance to struggle. You've trained yourself to keep going when things get hard. And that ability, that capacity to persist through pain, that's the foundation of every great achievement. You want to know the secret to success? It's not complicated. It's not some hidden knowledge that only a few people have access to. It's simple. It's just that most people aren't willing to do it. The secret is this: feel the pain and keep going anyway. That's it, that's the whole game. Everything else is just details. Feel the fear and take action anyway. Feel the doubt and persist anyway. Feel the discomfort and push forward anyway. Most people wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they feel motivated. They wait until the conditions are perfect. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by. While they're waiting for the perfect moment, other people who are less talented but more willing to experience discomfort are leaving them behind. While they're waiting to feel ready, their potential is slowly dying. You don't get ready by waiting. You get ready by doing. You build confidence through action, not through preparation. You create momentum by moving, not by planning. You develop strength by facing challenges, not by avoiding them. The readiness you're waiting for only comes after you start, not before. You have to be willing to begin before you feel ready. You have to be willing to take action while you're still scared. You have to be willing to keep going even when you don't know if you can. And yes, there will be times when you fail. There will be times when you fall short. There will be times when your best effort isn't enough. But even in those moments, especially in those moments, you're building something valuable. You're building resilience. You're building character. You're building the capacity to get back up after you've been knocked down. And in the long run, that capacity is worth more than any single achievement. Because life is going to knock you down. That's guaranteed. You're going to face setbacks. You're going to experience failures. You're going to go through periods where nothing seems to be working. And in those moments, what matters isn't what happened to you. What matters is what you do next. Do you stay down? Or do you get back up? Do you quit? Or do you keep fighting? Do you let the pain stop you? Or do you use it as fuel? The people who make it, the people who actually achieve their goals and become who they want to be, they're not people who never fell down. They're people who got back up every single time. They're people who faced more pain than most people can imagine and decided to keep going anyway. They're people who looked at their circumstances and said, "This isn't going to stop me. This is just part of the process. This is just the price I have to pay." And when you adopt that mindset, when you truly internalize that perspective, you become dangerous. Not dangerous to other people, but dangerous to your own limitations, dangerous to the status quo, dangerous to mediocrity, because now you're someone who can't be stopped by circumstances. You're someone who can't be deterred by obstacles. You're someone who views pain as a necessary part of growth rather than a reason to quit. That's the mindset shift that changes everything. That's the perspective that separates people who achieve extraordinary things from people who live ordinary lives. It's not that they have access to resources you don't have. It's not that they're smarter or more talented or luckier. It's that they've developed a different relationship with struggle. They've trained themselves to respond to pain by leaning into it rather than running from it. And you can develop that same relationship, starting right now, starting today. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait for some future version of yourself who's more ready or more capable. You just need to start. You just need to take the first step. You just need to do the thing that scares you, the thing that hurts, the thing that makes you uncomfortable. Because every time you do that, you're proving to yourself that you can. You're building evidence that you're capable of more than you thought. You're creating a track record of pushing through discomfort. And that track record becomes your foundation. That becomes what you stand on when things get really hard. That becomes the proof you need when doubt creeps in and tells you that you can't do it. You know what the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is? Stop waiting for external validation and start validating yourself through action. Stop looking for someone to give you permission and start giving yourself permission. Stop waiting for circumstances to change and start changing yourself. Because when you change, when you truly transform who you are at the core, your circumstances have no choice but to follow. The external world is just a reflection of your internal world. If you want your life to change, you have to change first. If you want different results, you have to become a different person. If you want to achieve things you've never achieved, you have to do things you've never done. And doing things you've never done means experiencing discomfort you've never experienced. There's no way around it. But here's the beautiful thing. You get to choose your pain. You can choose the pain of discipline, or you can choose the pain of regret. You can choose the pain of growth, or you can choose the pain of staying stuck. You can choose the temporary discomfort of pushing yourself, or you can choose the permanent discomfort of knowing you never tried. Either way, you're going to experience pain. The question is, which pain leads somewhere worth going? The pain of discipline leads to freedom. It leads to strength. It leads to capability. It leads to confidence. It leads to the life you actually want to live. The pain of regret leads nowhere. It just sits there, getting heavier with each passing year, reminding you of all the things you could have done but didn't, reminding you of all the potential you had but never used, reminding you of the person you could have been but never became. So if it hurts, good. That means you're doing something right. That means you're pushing beyond your comfort zone. That means you're growing. That means you're becoming someone new. Don't run from that pain. Don't avoid it. Don't numb it. Feel it fully and keep going anyway. Let it shape you. Let it strengthen you. Let it transform you into the person you're meant to be. Because on the other side of that pain is everything you want. On the other side of that discomfort is the life you dream about. On the other side of that struggle is the version of you that you've been trying to become. But the only way to get there is through. The only way to reach that destination is to walk the difficult path. The only way to become that person is to pay the price that transformation demands. And that price is always the same. It's always your willingness to experience discomfort. It's always your capacity to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. It's always your commitment to your future self over your current comfort. That's what it costs. That's what it takes. That's the deal. So make the deal. Pay the price. Do the work. Feel the pain and keep going anyway. Because that's how you win. That's how you become who you're supposed to be. That's how you build a life worth living. Not by avoiding struggle, but by embracing it. Not by running from pain, but by running toward it. Not by choosing comfort, but by choosing growth. If it hurts, good. Keep going. That pain is not stopping you. It's making you. It's forging you. It's creating the version of you that's capable of achieving everything you want. Trust the process. Trust the pain. Trust yourself. And whatever you do, don't stop now. You're exactly where you need to be. You're experiencing exactly what you need to experience. You're becoming exactly who you need to become. So keep going, keep pushing, keep fighting. Your future self is counting on you to not give up. Don't let them down. You're standing at the bottom looking up at a mountain you didn't choose to climb. Nobody asked you if you wanted to start from zero. Nobody gave you the option to begin somewhere easier. You just woke up one day and realized this is your reality. No money, no connections, no blueprint, no safety net. Just you and the decision you're about to make. You can accept this as your story, or you can reject it as your destiny. Most people accept it. They look at where they are and where everyone else seems to be, and they do the math. They calculate the distance. They measure the gap. They count all the reasons why closing that gap is impossible, and then they stop moving. They build their entire identity around being the person who never had a chance, and that identity becomes a prison, a comfortable, familiar prison where they never have to risk anything because they've already convinced themselves the risk isn't worth it. You're not most people. You're here because something inside you refuses to settle. Something in you looks at nothing and sees potential instead of poverty. You look at the mountain and instead of seeing impossibility, you see the path. Not the easy path, not the clear path, but a path nonetheless. And that difference in perspective is everything. That's the gap between people who escape nothing and people who die there. Here's what nobody tells you about starting from nothing. It's not the disadvantage they make it out to be. It's liberation. When you have nothing to lose. No reputation to protect. No comfort zone slowly killing you. No image to maintain. You're free to fail. Free to experiment. Free to try things that people with something would never risk. And that freedom is the most valuable asset you'll ever have. But most people never use it. They're so busy being ashamed of having nothing that they never realize nothing is actually the perfect place to start. The first move from nothing to something isn't about strategy. It's about decision. You have to decide that where you are is temporary, that your current address doesn't determine your final destination, that the circumstances of your birth don't define the trajectory of your life, and that decision has to be so deep, so permanent, so non-negotiable that quitting becomes impossible. Because quitting is going to look really attractive. It's going to whisper to you every single day. It's going to remind you of every reason why you should stop trying and accept your place. And if your decision isn't stronger than those whispers, you'll quit. Simple as that. You think you want success. You don't. Not really. You want the life that success provides. You want the comfort, the security, the respect, the proof that you matter. But success itself, success is suffering in disguise. It's waking up before everyone else. It's working when everyone else is sleeping. It's sacrificing what you want now for what you want most. And most people aren't willing to do that. They want the destination without the journey, the reward without the work, the transformation without the pain. And that's why they stay exactly where they are. Starting from nothing means you're going to be invisible for a long time. You're going to work harder than everyone around you and have nothing to show for it. You're going to build in silence while everyone else is living out loud. You're going to invest hours and days and months into something that might not work. And during that time, people are going to judge you. They're going to call you obsessed, unrealistic, delusional. And they're right. You are delusional. Because you believe in a version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. You're building toward a future that has no evidence in your present. And that delusion is exactly what you need. Reality is for people who accept where they are. Delusion is for people who create where they're going. You're going to fail more times than you succeed. Let me be clear about that. Your first attempts won't work. Your first business will struggle. Your first offers will get rejected. Your first outreach will be ignored. And every single failure is going to hurt. It's going to make you question everything. It's going to make you wonder if you're the exception to every success story you've ever heard. And in those moments, you're going to have to make a choice. You can interpret failure as evidence that you should quit, or you can interpret it as data, as information, as feedback about what doesn't work that brings you closer to what does. The people who make it from nothing to something don't have some special gift. They're not more talented. They're not more intelligent. They're just more stubborn. They refuse to interpret setbacks as stop signs. They see them as redirections. And that mental shift is everything, because the path from nothing to something is never straight. It's messy and chaotic and full of dead ends. And if you need the path to be clear before you start walking, you'll never start. You have to be willing to move in the dark, to build without blueprints, to figure it out as you go. And that uncertainty is what kills most people's dreams before they even begin. Nobody is coming to save you. Let that sink in. Your parents aren't coming. Your friends aren't coming. The government isn't coming. Some mysterious opportunity isn't going to fall into your lap. You're on your own. And that realization can either destroy you or liberate you. Most people let it destroy them. They wait for rescue that never comes. They expect someone else to create opportunities for them. They blame the world for not giving them what they deserve. And they die waiting for permission, waiting for the right time, waiting for conditions that will never be perfect. You have to rescue yourself. You have to create your own opportunities. You have to become the person who makes things happen instead of the person waiting for things to happen. And that shift from passive to active, from victim to creator, from dependent to independent, that's the shift that changes everything. That's the moment you go from having nothing to building something. Not when you get lucky, not when someone helps you, but when you decide to help yourself. The work you do when nobody's watching is the work that matters most. Because that's the work that's building the foundation. That's the work that's creating the skills. That's the work that's developing the discipline. Everyone sees the results. Nobody sees the process. Everyone celebrates the win. Nobody witnessed the preparation. Everyone wants the glory. Nobody wants the grind. But the grind is where you're made. The invisible hours, the early mornings, the late nights, the moments when you're tired and you keep going anyway, the moments when you're discouraged and you push through anyway, the moments when quitting makes sense and you refuse anyway. That's where champions are built. Not in public, not when people are watching, not when there's applause and recognition, but in private, in silence, in the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. And if you're not willing to work in that gap, if you need external validation to keep going, if you need people to see your effort before you're willing to make it, you're never going to build anything real. Because real building happens in the dark. Real growth happens when nobody's watching. Real transformation happens when you're alone with yourself and you choose to become more. Something isn't the destination. It's proof of concept. When you reach something, when you build that first win, when you create that first result, you're not celebrating arrival. You're celebrating evidence. Evidence that you can create. Evidence that effort compounds. Evidence that you're capable of more than where you started. And that evidence matters. Not because other people see it, but because you see it. Because now you have undeniable proof that nothing is impermanent. That you can build. That you can grow. That you can become. But here's where most people mess up. They reach something and they stop. They exhale. They celebrate. They convince themselves they've earned the right to coast. And slowly, without even realizing it, they stop pushing. They stop growing. They stop demanding more from themselves. They protect what they built instead of using it as a platform for what comes next. And their something becomes their ceiling. The thing they built becomes the thing that limits them. The proof of what they could do becomes evidence of what they won't do. You can't let that happen. Something is a checkpoint, not a campsite. It's confirmation that you can build, which means you can build bigger. It's proof that you can create, which means you can create more. It's evidence that you're capable, which means you're capable of everything, but only if you treat it as foundation instead of finish line. Only if you use what you built as leverage instead of limitation. Only if you refuse to let comfort kill your hunger. The move from something to everything is different from the move from nothing to something. When you had nothing, you were desperate. You had to move. You had no choice. But now you have choices. You have comfort. You have stability. You have a life that makes sense to other people. And the path to everything requires you to risk all of that. It requires you to put your something in danger for a shot at everything. And that's where most people break, because the fear of losing what they have is stronger than their hunger for what they want. This is the real test, not the struggle from nothing. That was hard, but it was simple. You had no choice but to move. But now you have a choice. You can maintain. You can coast. You can live a perfectly acceptable life that nobody would judge you for. Or you can go for everything. And that choice is going to define who you become. Because choosing to pursue everything when you already have something means you're choosing growth over comfort, potential over security, becoming over being. And that choice separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Your comfort zone is a slow death. It feels safe. It feels warm. It feels like you finally made it. But it's killing you. Every day you stay there, you're dying a little bit. Not physically, but everything that matters is dying. Your hunger, your drive, your ambition, your belief that you can be more. It's all slowly fading away. And one day you're going to wake up and realize you've spent years maintaining instead of growing, protecting instead of building, surviving instead of thriving. And by then, it might be too late. The fire that used to burn inside you will be reduced to embers, and rekindling that fire becomes almost impossible. Don't let that happen. Don't let comfort kill what you could become. Don't trade your potential for stability. Don't sacrifice your future for your present. Because what you have right now, as good as it is, as comfortable as it feels, it's not everything. It's not even close to everything. It's just enough to make you stop pushing. Just enough to make you forget what you're capable of. Just enough to make you settle. And settling is the death of greatness. Everything requires a different version of you. The person who got you from nothing to something won't get you from something to everything. That version was scrappy, hungry, willing to hustle, and that was perfect for that phase. But this phase requires evolution. You can't just work harder. You have to work smarter. You have to build systems instead of just grinding. You have to create leverage instead of just executing. You have to learn to lead instead of just doing. You have to trust others instead of just trusting yourself. And every one of those shifts is going to feel uncomfortable, because you're killing the version of yourself that got you here to become the version that gets you there. This transformation isn't optional. You can't reach everything while staying who you are. The person who has everything thinks differently, moves differently, decides differently, values different things. And becoming that person means letting go of who you've been. It means killing habits that served you once but limit you now. It means releasing identities that got you here but won't get you there. It means evolving past the version of yourself that everyone knows and becoming someone even you don't fully recognize yet. Most people can't do this. They hold on to their old identity like it's life support. They keep using strategies that stopped working. They stay loyal to the version of themselves that's comfortable even when that version is keeping them stuck. And they plateau. They build something impressive and then they stop growing. Not because they can't grow, but because growth requires them to change. And change feels like loss, like betrayal, like abandoning who they are. So they choose to stay the same. And staying the same means staying where they are. You have to be willing to become unrecognizable to the people who knew you, to the version of yourself you've been protecting. You have to be willing to outgrow relationships that no longer serve you. environments that no longer challenge you, beliefs about yourself that no longer match who you're becoming. And that's going to be lonely. It's going to be painful. People are going to say you've changed, and you're going to have to resist the urge to shrink back to who you were just to make them comfortable. Because you did change. You're supposed to change. That's the entire point. The people in your life right now aren't all coming with you to everything. Some of them are meant for the nothing phase. They were there when you had nothing. They struggled with you. They understood you. But they're not built for where you're going. Some are meant for the something phase. They celebrated your first wins. They supported your growth, but they can't see the vision for everything. And that's okay. People come into your life for seasons. Not everyone is meant for every season. And trying to drag people with you who aren't willing to grow is going to slow you down. It's going to drain you. It's going to make you choose between your relationships and your destiny. Choose your destiny every single time. That sounds harsh. It sounds selfish, but it's reality. Because the people who truly love you will grow with you. They'll push you. They'll challenge you. They'll celebrate your evolution instead of resenting it. And the people who don't, the ones who need you to stay small so they feel big, the ones who guilt you for changing, the ones who make you feel bad for wanting more, those people are anchors. And you can't swim to everything with anchors tied to your waist. Everything costs everything. That's not a metaphor. That's the price tag. If you want everything, you have to give everything. Every comfort, every certainty, every relationship that doesn't grow with you, every habit that holds you back, every belief that limits you, every version of yourself that's keeping you small. You have to put it all on the table. You have to be willing to lose it all for a chance at having it all. And most people aren't willing to make that trade. They want everything, but they're not willing to give everything. And that's why they never get it. The gap between something and everything is where dreams go to die. Because it's the gap where comfort kills hunger, where stability murders ambition, where good enough becomes the enemy of great. You're sitting in a life that's perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable, perfectly safe, and everything is asking you to risk all of that, to bet on yourself one more time, to go all in when you could cash out, to push when you could rest, to sacrifice when you could settle. And that ask feels insane to people who are comfortable, but to you, settling feels like dying. You're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable again. When you were building from nothing, discomfort was your reality. You lived there, but when you reached something, you created comfort. You earned stability. You built a life where you don't have to struggle every day. And now I'm telling you that comfort is the enemy, that you have to choose discomfort again, that you have to walk away from the ease you created and go back into the fire, not because you have to, but because you want to, because comfort without growth is a slow death, because safety without challenge is a prison, because something without everything is potential, unrealized. The world doesn't need more people who are comfortable. It needs people who are willing to be uncomfortable in pursuit of something meaningful. People who choose significance over safety, impact over comfort, legacy over ease. And that person has to be you. Not because you're special, but because you're willing to suffer, willing to sacrifice, willing to keep pushing when everyone else has stopped, willing to demand more from yourself when everyone else is satisfied with less. Everything isn't just about what you accumulate. It's about who you become in the process. It's about pushing yourself past limits you didn't know existed. It's about discovering what you're actually capable of when you stop holding back. It's about the person you have to become to build something that matters. And that person is worth becoming even if you never reach everything, even if you fail, even if you lose it all trying. That person is the prize. Everything is just the evidence that you became them. You're going to doubt yourself. That's guaranteed. You're going to wake up some days and wonder if you're chasing something that doesn't exist, if you're sacrificing real comfort for imaginary potential, if you should just accept where you are and stop reaching for where you want to be. And in those moments, you have to remember why you started. You have to reconnect with the version of yourself who had nothing and decided that nothing wasn't enough, who looked at something and saw it as a checkpoint, not a destination, who understood that comfort is the enemy of the person you're trying to become. Doubt is always going to be there. It's never going away. It's going to whisper that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not ready, that you should wait, that you should quit. And you're going to have to learn to move with doubt instead of waiting for it to disappear, because confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. You don't feel confident and then make the move. You make the move and then feel confident because you survived it. So, stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel confident. Stop waiting for doubt to go away. Move anyway. Build anyway. Push anyway. And watch confidence follow. The path to everything is lonely. You need to accept that now. The higher you climb, the fewer people you find. Most people stopped at something. They're not trying to go further. They're not pushing for more. They're maintaining, protecting, coasting, and they're going to expect you to do the same. They're going to be confused when you keep pushing, annoyed when you keep sacrificing, frustrated when you choose growth over hanging out, and you're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to make peace with being misunderstood, with being alone, with people thinking you're too much, because the alternative is dimming your light to match their comfort level, and that's not an option. Loneliness at the top isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the price you pay for refusing to be average, for demanding more from yourself, for choosing to become exceptional in a world that rewards mediocrity. And that loneliness can either break you or build you. It can make you question your path or confirm you're on the right one. It can make you want to quit or make you more determined. The choice is yours. But understand this: everyone who reached everything walked through loneliness to get there. Everyone who built something significant did it while feeling isolated. Everyone who created legacy felt misunderstood. It comes with the territory. Accept it. Embrace it. Use it. Your biggest enemy isn't competition. It's not the market. It's not the economy. It's not your circumstances. Your biggest enemy is you, the version of you that's scared, the version that wants to quit, the version that needs validation, the version that compares yourself to others, the version that makes excuses, the version that chooses comfort over growth. That version is what's standing between you and everything, and you have to kill it. You have to wake up every single day and choose to be the version that pushes, that sacrifices, that does the work, that keeps going, that refuses to settle. This is a daily battle. It's not one decision. It's 1,000 decisions. It's choosing to get up when you want to sleep in, choosing to work when you want to relax, choosing to invest when you want to spend, choosing to build when you want to consume, choosing to grow when you want to coast. Every single one of those choices is a vote for the person you're becoming. And the person who reaches everything is just someone who voted for themselves more times than they voted against themselves. It's that simple and that hard. Everything requires you to bet on yourself when logic says you should quit, when the timeline is longer than you planned, when the cost is higher than you expected, when the results are slower than you hoped. You have to keep going anyway. You have to trust the process when the process gives you nothing back. You have to believe in what you're building when nobody else can see it yet. And that's not faith. That's not hope. That's decision. That's commitment. That's you choosing to become the person who reaches everything regardless of how long it takes or what it costs. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. They work for months, sometimes years. They invest everything. They sacrifice. they push, and then right when things are about to shift, right when the momentum is about to tip in their favor, they quit. They give up one day too soon, one attempt too early, one push before the breakthrough, and they never know how close they were. They never realized that everything they wanted was just on the other side of one more try, one more day, one more push, and that's the tragedy. Not that they failed, but that they quit right before they would have succeeded. Don't be that person. Don't quit one day too soon. Don't give up one attempt too early. Don't stop pushing right before the breakthrough, because you never know which attempt is going to be the one, which day is going to be the day, which push is going to create the shift. So you have to treat every attempt like it's the one, every day like it's the day, every push like it's the push that changes everything. Not because it definitely is, but because it might be, and that possibility is worth the effort. From nothing to something to everything isn't 3 destinations. It's 3 transformations, 3 versions of yourself, 3 completely different people. And most people never make all 3 transitions because they're not willing to let go of who they were to become who they need to be. They reach something and they cling to the person who got them there. They refuse to evolve. They refuse to change. They refuse to become. And they stay stuck at something for the rest of their life, wondering what would have happened if they had kept going. Don't be that person. Don't reach something and stop. Don't build a foundation and treat it like a finish line. Don't prove you can create and then stop creating. Use what you built as proof of what you can build. Use where you are as evidence of where you can go. Use who you've become as confirmation of who you can become. Because the gap between where you are and where you could be isn't about ability. It's about willingness. And you're willing. You've always been willing. From the moment you decided nothing wasn't your destiny. From the moment you built something from scratch. You've been on this path the whole time. Everything is just the next step. The world is going to try to stop you, not intentionally, not maliciously, but it's going to try. It's going to offer you comfort when you need hunger, stability when you need growth, approval when you need independence. And if you accept those offers, if you let the world domesticate you, you're never going to reach everything. Because everything requires you to reject what the world thinks you should want, to refuse to follow the path everyone else is walking, to build something that doesn't make sense to people who chose safety. You have to be willing to look crazy, to be misunderstood, to have people question your decisions, to let them think you're taking unnecessary risks, to allow them to be concerned about your choices. Because their concern comes from their perspective, and their perspective is built on their limitations, not yours. They're projecting what they would do in your situation, but they're not you. They don't have your vision. They don't have your hunger. They don't have your willingness to sacrifice everything for a shot at everything. So their opinion, while well-meaning, is irrelevant. Stop seeking permission from people who aren't going where you're going. Stop asking for approval from people who settled at something when you're reaching for everything. Stop letting people who chose comfort convince you to abandon your hunger. Their advice is filtered through their choices, and their choices aren't your destiny. You're on a different path, and that path requires you to trust yourself more than you trust their opinions. It requires you to believe in your vision more than you believe in their doubts. It requires you to bet on your potential more than you protect their feelings. Everything is built in the moments nobody sees. The early mornings, the late nights, the weekends you worked while everyone else relaxed, the investments you made while everyone else spent, the books you consumed while everyone else consumed entertainment, the skills you built while everyone else built excuses. Those moments don't feel significant when you're living them. They feel like just another day, just another session, just another sacrifice. But those moments compound, they add up, they build on each other, and eventually they create results that look like overnight success to everyone else, but feel like years of preparation to you. Don't look for shortcuts. There aren't any, not real ones. Every shortcut you take now becomes a gap in your foundation later. Every corner you cut weakens the structure you're building. Every time you choose fast over solid, you're borrowing from your future, and eventually that debt comes due. The foundation cracks, the structure collapses, and you have to rebuild from scratch. But this time with the knowledge that you wasted years chasing shortcuts instead of building something real. Build it right the first time, even if it takes longer, even if it's harder, even if nobody sees the work you're putting in. Build it right, build it solid, build it to last, because everything isn't just about getting there, it's about staying there. It's about building something that can sustain, that can scale, that can endure. And you can't build that on shortcuts and hacks and quick fixes. You build that on foundation, on fundamentals, on doing the unsexy work that creates lasting results. Your something is going to be tested. The moment you reach it, the moment you build that first win, life is going to test whether you deserve to keep it. It's going to throw challenges at you, setbacks, obstacles, situations that threaten to take away what you built. And this is where you prove who you are. Do you protect what you built and stop growing? Or do you defend what you built while continuing to push for more? Do you become reactive and scared? Or do you stay proactive and hungry? The test isn't whether you can build something. The test is whether you can keep something while building more. Most people fail this test. They get their first win, and they shift into protection mode. They become defensive, conservative, risk-averse. They spend more energy protecting what they have than creating what comes next. And slowly, what they built starts to decay, not because they lost it, but because they stopped growing it. They stopped feeding it. They stopped investing in it. They treated it like a finish line instead of a starting point. And what was once their greatest achievement becomes their limitation, their ceiling, their prison. You can't let that happen. You have to learn to hold what you have with an open hand. Protect it, but don't cling to it. Value it, but don't worship it. Appreciate it, but don't become attached to it. Because attachment creates fear, and fear kills growth. You have to be willing to risk what you have for what comes next. Not recklessly, not stupidly, but strategically, with calculated risk, with intelligent bets, with the understanding that keeping what you have without growing it is the same as losing it slowly. The transition from something to everything requires different fuel. When you were going from nothing to something, you ran on desperation, on survival, on proving you could do it. But you can't reach everything on those same emotions. Desperation burns out. Survival gets exhausting. Proving yourself loses motivation once you've proven it. So you need new fuel. And that fuel is purpose, vision, legacy, impact, becoming someone who matters, building something that lasts, creating something that helps, that changes, that improves, that outlives you. This shift from proving yourself to serving something bigger is essential, because everything isn't about you. It's bigger than you. It's about what you can create that exists beyond you, what you can build that helps others, what you can establish that lasts after you're gone. And that shift in focus changes everything. It changes how you work, how you lead, how you build, how you sacrifice. Because you're not just working for yourself anymore. You're working for the people you'll help, the lives you'll change, the impact you'll make. And that purpose is renewable. It doesn't burn out. It doesn't fade. It grows stronger the more you pour into it. Everything is going to require you to become a leader, not just of people, but of yourself, of your vision, of your mission. You're going to have to inspire others, recruit others, convince others to join you in building something that doesn't exist yet, and that requires a different version of you. A version that can articulate vision so clearly that others can see it too. A version that can lead so confidently that others feel safe following. A version that can inspire so powerfully that others catch your hunger. And becoming that version means developing skills you don't have yet. Learning to communicate differently. Learning to influence differently. Learning to lead differently. Most people who came from nothing struggle with leadership because they learned to survive alone. They learned to trust only themselves. They learned that needing help is weakness. And those beliefs served them when they had nothing. But those same beliefs limit them when they're building everything. Because everything can't be built alone. It requires teams, systems, people who believe in your vision and execute it with you. And if you can't let go of the belief that you have to do everything yourself, you'll never build anything bigger than what you can personally manage. Learn to trust, learn to delegate, learn to empower, learn to build teams, learn to create systems, learn to multiply yourself through others. These aren't just skills, they're requirements for everything. And developing these skills means confronting every insecurity you have about letting go of control. Every fear you have about people letting you down. Every belief you have about being the only person who can do it right. Those fears and beliefs are chains, and they're keeping you from scaling, from growing, from reaching everything. So take it, risk it, bet on it. Go all in on yourself one more time. Not because success is guaranteed, but because regret is permanent. Not because the path is clear, but because staying where you are is unacceptable. Not because everyone will understand, but because you'll understand. You'll know you gave everything you had. You'll know you became everything you could. You'll know you didn't settle when you could have. You didn't stop when you should have. You didn't accept something when you were capable of everything. The distance from nothing to something to everything isn't measured in time or money or milestones. It's measured in who you had to become to get there. It's measured in versions of yourself you had to kill. It's measured in comfort you had to sacrifice. It's measured in doubt you had to overcome. It's measured in moments you chose to keep going, when every logical reason said to stop. And when you reach everything, when you finally get there, you're going to look back at the person who had nothing and you won't recognize them. You're going to look back at the person who settled for something and wonder how you ever thought that was enough. Because everything changes you. The pursuit of it, the becoming of it, the price you paid for it. You're not the same person anymore. You can't be. You evolved. You transformed. You became someone capable of handling what you wanted. And that becoming is the real victory. Everything is just the scoreboard. The real win is who you had to become to earn it. The biggest wins in your life started as something so small you almost missed it. That decision you made on a random Tuesday. That conversation you had with yourself at 3 a.m. Big things start small. But here's the part that messes people up. They think small means insignificant. They think small means it doesn't matter. So they wait. They wait for the big moment, the big opportunity, the big break. And while they're waiting for the universe to hand them something massive, they're ignoring the tiny decision right in front of them that could change everything. You want to know what big things look like at the beginning? They look boring. They look unremarkable. They look like nothing special is happening. That's why most people miss them. They're searching for fireworks when they should be looking for the spark. Think about it. Every single thing that exists in your life right now started somewhere small. Your closest friendship started with a hello. Your skills started with sucking at something and doing it anyway. Your confidence started with one moment where you didn't back down. Everything traces back to a beginning that didn't feel like much at the time. But you already know this. You've lived it. The question is, why do you keep forgetting it when it matters most? Why do you dismiss the small steps when you're standing at the bottom of your own mountain? You look up at where you want to be and the distance feels impossible, so you don't start. You convince yourself that unless you can take giant leaps, there's no point in moving at all. That's the trap. That's what keeps you stuck. You're waiting for conditions that don't exist. You're waiting to feel ready. You're waiting for certainty. You're waiting for someone to tell you it's going to work out. And while you wait, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and you're still standing in the same spot, telling yourself the same story about why now isn't the right time. Here's what nobody wants to hear. The right time is whatever time you decide to start. That's it. There's no magical alignment of circumstances coming to save you. There's no perfect moment when all your doubts disappear and the path becomes clear. You start scared. You start uncertain. You start with no idea if it's going to work. And you do it anyway because doing something small is better than doing nothing at all. You think the people you admire started with some master plan. You think they had it all figured out before they took the first step. They didn't. They were just as confused as you are. The difference is they moved anyway. They took the small action even when it felt pointless. They showed up even when nobody was watching. They put in the work even when the results weren't showing up yet. That's the secret nobody talks about. Consistency with small things creates momentum, and momentum is what carries you through the hard parts. You don't need to be motivated every single day. You need to be committed to the process, even when motivation is nowhere to be found. You need to understand that progress isn't always visible, but it's always happening when you keep showing up. Think about learning anything new. The first time you try, you're terrible. You feel awkward. You feel stupid. You want to quit because your brain is screaming at you that you're not built for this. But if you push through that discomfort and try again tomorrow, something shifts. You're still not good, but you're less terrible. And if you keep going, one day you look up and realize you're actually decent at this thing that used to feel impossible. That transformation didn't happen because of one big effort. It happened because of 100 small efforts you barely remember. It happened because you chose to show up when it was hard. It happened because you didn't let the gap between where you were and where you wanted to be paralyze you into inaction. Here's what you need to understand about big things, starting small. The beginning is supposed to feel insignificant. It's supposed to feel like it's not enough. That feeling is not a sign you're doing it wrong. That feeling is proof you're at the starting line. And the starting line never feels impressive. It's just the point where you stop thinking about it and start doing it. You want to write a book? Write 1 page. You want to get in shape? Do 10 push-ups. You want to change your career? Update your resume. You want to build a business? Make 1 phone call. You want to fix a relationship? Send 1 text. These actions feel too small to matter, but that's exactly why they work. They're small enough that you can't talk yourself out of them. They're small enough that fear doesn't have time to stop you. And once you do the small thing, something interesting happens. The next small thing becomes easier, not because the task changed, but because you changed. You proved to yourself that you can follow through. You built evidence that you're the kind of person who takes action, and that evidence compounds. It stacks up. It becomes your identity. People don't fail because they can't do big things. They fail because they won't do small things. They want the result without the process. They want the destination without the journey. They want to skip to the part where it feels good and avoid the part where it feels hard. But life doesn't work that way. You don't get to bypass the beginning just because it's uncomfortable. You know what's wild? The small things you're avoiding right now are probably the exact things that would unlock everything else. That difficult conversation you keep putting off. That habit you know you need to build. That fear you need to face. These aren't obstacles in your way. These are the way. The path forward goes straight through the things you're trying to avoid. And I get it. Small things don't feel exciting. They don't give you the immediate dopamine hit of something dramatic. There's no rush in doing 1 more rep or writing 1 more paragraph or making 1 more attempt. It feels mundane. It feels ordinary. But ordinary actions repeated over time create extraordinary results. That's not a cliche. That's math. Every person you look at and think they have it all figured out went through the same boring process you're avoiding. They just didn't let the boring part stop them. They understood that boring is part of the deal. Boring is where the transformation happens. Boring is where you build the foundation that everything else sits on. You can't build a skyscraper without spending months on the foundation. Nobody sees that part. Nobody celebrates that part. But without it, nothing else stands. Your life is the same way. The small daily choices you make when nobody's watching are the foundation. And if you keep skipping the foundation because it doesn't feel significant enough, you're always going to wonder why nothing you build lasts. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop measuring progress by how much distance you've covered. Start measuring it by whether you showed up today. Did you do the thing you said you would do? Did you take the small step even when you didn't feel like it? That's the only metric that matters at the beginning. Consistency beats intensity every single time. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to be present. You're trying to show up for yourself in small ways that build trust between you and your future. Every time you follow through on a small commitment, you're telling your brain that you're serious about this. You're creating a pattern, and patterns become automatic. What feels like effort today becomes second nature tomorrow, but you have to start. And starting means accepting that the beginning won't feel like much. It won't feel like progress. It won't feel like you're doing enough. That discomfort is the price of admission. You pay it by showing up anyway. You pay it by trusting the process even when you can't see the results yet. Think about planting a seed. You put it in the ground, you water it. Nothing happens. You water it again. Still nothing. Days go by. Weeks go by. And on the surface, it looks like your effort is wasted. But underground, roots are forming. Systems are being built. And one day, without warning, something breaks through the soil. That's when people notice. That's when they say you got lucky or you're talented or you're special. But you know the truth. The breakthrough happened because you watered the seed when there was nothing to see. Your life works the same way. The work you're putting in right now might not show up tomorrow. It might not show up next week. But it's building something beneath the surface. It's creating the conditions for growth. And if you keep watering it, if you keep showing up, the breakthrough will come. Not because you're special, but because you refused to quit when it looked like nothing was happening. People quit right before the breakthrough. They put in weeks or months of effort, and when they don't see immediate results, they convince themselves it's not working. They stop right before the roots were about to break through. They abandon the process right before it was about to pay off. Don't be that person. Don't let impatience rob you of the reward you've already earned through consistency. You need to rewire how you think about progress. Progress isn't always visible, but it's always happening if you're putting in the work. You're not going to see dramatic changes overnight. You're going to see tiny shifts that don't feel like much in the moment. But those tiny shifts add up. They compound. And 6 months from now, when you look back, you won't recognize the person you used to be. That's the power of small things done consistently. They don't just change your circumstances. They change you. They change how you see yourself. They change what you believe you're capable of. And when your identity shifts, everything else shifts with it. You stop being the person who talks about doing things, and you become the person who does things. That transformation doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in 1,000 small moments where you chose action over comfort. Here's what you need to accept. The journey is long. The progress is slow. The work is repetitive. And that's exactly how it should be. If it was fast and easy, everyone would do it. The fact that it's hard is what makes it valuable. The fact that most people quit is what creates the opportunity for you to stand out. You don't need to be the most talented or the most gifted. You just need to be the most consistent. Stop looking for shortcuts. Stop searching for hacks. Stop hoping someone will hand you a blueprint that makes it easy. There is no easy. There's only the decision to show up every day and do the work even when you don't feel like it. That's the blueprint. That's the secret. And it's not sexy. It's not exciting. But it works. You want proof? Look at your own life. Think about the things you've actually accomplished, the skills you've built, the goals you've achieved. How did they happen? Did they happen overnight? Did they happen because of one massive effort? No. They happened because you showed up repeatedly over time. They happened because you did small things until those small things added up to something big. You already have evidence that this works. You've lived it. So why do you doubt it now? Why do you look at your current goals and think it's going to be different this time? It's not different. The process is the same. Small actions repeated consistently over time create big results. That's the formula. That's always been the formula. The only question is whether you're willing to trust it. And trusting it means letting go of the need for immediate validation. It means accepting that you might work for weeks without seeing any external proof that it's working. It means showing up even when your progress feels invisible. That's the test. That's where most people fail. They need constant feedback. They need constant reassurance. And when they don't get it, they quit. But you're not most people. At least you don't have to be. You can be the person who understands that feedback comes later. Feedback comes after you've built something worth noticing. Feedback comes after you've put in enough reps that the results become undeniable. Until then, you work in silence. You work without applause. You work for yourself and your future, not for the approval of people who aren't even paying attention yet. This is where mental toughness matters. This is where you find out what you're made of. Anyone can start when they're motivated. Anyone can put in effort when it feels good. But can you keep going when it feels pointless? Can you show up when nobody cares? Can you push through the middle part where nothing exciting is happening and it just feels like work? That's the real test. And here's the truth. The middle is where winners are made. The middle is where the people who are serious separate from the people who are just curious. The middle is boring. The middle is repetitive. The middle is where you question everything. And if you can survive the middle without quitting, you win. Because most people can't. Most people need constant excitement. They need constant progress. They need constant validation. And when they don't get it, they move on to the next thing. You can't afford to be like that. You can't afford to chase the feeling of starting something new every time the current thing gets hard. That pattern keeps you stuck. That pattern keeps you at the beginning of 100 different things instead of at the finish line of one thing. And you know this. You've seen it in your own life. How many things have you started and abandoned because they stopped feeling exciting? Break that pattern. Commit to seeing something through even when it's boring. Commit to finishing what you start even when nobody's watching. Commit to the process even when the results aren't showing up yet. That commitment is what separates the people who achieve their goals from the people who just talk about them. Big things start small, but they only become big if you stick with them. If you quit every time it gets hard or boring or uncomfortable, you'll never see what you're capable of. You'll always wonder what could have been if you just kept going. Don't live with that regret. Don't look back 5 years from now and realize you could have had everything you wanted if you just didn't quit when it got tough. The work you're avoiding is the work that matters most. The small step you're dismissing as insignificant is probably the exact step you need to take right now. Stop waiting for it to feel right. Stop waiting for it to feel big enough. Just take the step. Do the small thing. Show up today, and then show up again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. You're not building Rome in a day. You're laying one brick at a time. And if you lay enough bricks, eventually you have something worth looking at. But you have to lay the bricks. You have to do the boring work. You have to show up when it's hard. That's the price. That's what it costs to build something that lasts. And yes, it's going to take longer than you want. Yes, it's going to be harder than you think. Yes, there will be days when you feel like you're not making progress, but those days don't mean you're failing. Those days mean you're in the middle, and the middle is where the transformation happens. The middle is where you build the strength to finish. The middle is where you become the person who's capable of achieving the goal you set. So stop focusing on how far you have to go. Start focusing on what you can do today, right now, this moment. What's the smallest action you can take that moves you forward? Take it. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for it to feel perfect. Just take the action and worry about the next step tomorrow. Big things start small, but small things become big when you refuse to quit, when you keep showing up, when you trust the process even when you can't see the results. That's how you win. That's how you build the life you want. One small decision at a time. One small action at a time, one small day at a time. And before you know it, those small things have added up to something massive, something you built, something nobody can take from you, because you earned it the hard way. You earned it by doing the work when it didn't feel like much. You earned it by believing in yourself when nobody else did. You earned it by starting small and refusing to stop. Let me tell you something else about small beginnings. They humble you, and that humbling is necessary, because when you start small, you can't hide behind excuses. You can't blame the economy or your circumstances or the people around you. A small beginning strips away all the noise and puts you face to face with the real question. Are you willing to do what it takes or not? That's it. No room for stories. No room for justifications, just you and the work. And most people can't handle that honesty. They need to believe that external forces are holding them back because it protects their ego. It's easier to say the world is rigged than to admit you haven't tried hard enough yet. It's easier to point at obstacles than to acknowledge you're standing still by choice. Small beginnings force you to confront that. They force you to take responsibility. And responsibility is uncomfortable, but it's also the only thing that gives you power. When you accept that your starting point doesn't determine your ending point, everything changes. When you accept that nobody's coming to save you, and that's actually a good thing because it means you're in control, you stop waiting, you stop making excuses, you stop looking for permission. You just start, and starting is the hardest part. Not because it's complicated, but because it requires you to be honest about where you are and where you want to go. Here's what happens when you commit to small steps. You start noticing things. You start seeing opportunities you were blind to before. You start understanding patterns you missed when you were too busy looking for the shortcut. The small steps slow you down enough to actually learn. And learning is what makes the difference between someone who gets lucky once and someone who builds something sustainable. People think success is about the big break. It's not. It's about the 10,000 small decisions that put you in position to take advantage of the break when it comes. It's about showing up so consistently that when opportunity knocks, you're ready. You're not scrambling. You're not underprepared. You're not caught off guard. You've been preparing through small daily actions that nobody saw. And when your moment arrives, it looks like luck to everyone else. But you know it was the result of work they never witnessed. That's the gap between people who make it and people who don't. The people who make it understand that preparation happens in private. Growth happens in private. The transformation happens in the hours when nobody's watching and nobody's cheering. That's where you build yourself into someone capable of handling what you say you want. Because here's the thing. You might want success, but are you ready for it? Have you developed the discipline to sustain it? Have you built the habits that will support it? Or are you still the same person with the same patterns hoping for different results? Small beginnings give you time to become that person. They give you space to fail without catastrophic consequences. They let you experiment and adjust and learn what works. If you try to skip that phase, if you try to go from 0 to 100 without putting in the reps, you'll crash. You'll get what you want and not know how to keep it. Or worse, You'll get what you want and realize it's not what you actually needed because you never took the time to understand yourself. So don't rush it. Don't wish away the beginning. The beginning is where you're building the version of yourself that gets to enjoy the ending. The beginning is where you're developing the mindset that will carry you through the inevitable challenges. The beginning is where you're proving to yourself that you're serious. And that proof matters more than you realize. Every time you show up when it's hard, you're banking evidence. You're creating a track record that your brain can reference when things get tough later. And things will get tough later. There's no version of this where it's smooth sailing all the way through. There will be setbacks. There will be failures. There will be moments when you question everything. But if you've built a foundation of small, consistent actions, those moments won't break you. They'll test you. They'll challenge you. But they won't break you, because you'll have proof that you can handle hard things. You'll have evidence that you've survived worse. You'll have a history of showing up that tells you this is just another obstacle, not the end of the road. That's what small beginnings really give you. They give you resilience. They give you grit. They give you the ability to weather storms because you've been training in the rain. You haven't been waiting for perfect conditions. You haven't been hiding until everything aligns. You've been out there doing the work in less than ideal circumstances. And that experience is priceless. That experience is what separates people who fold under pressure from people who thrive in it. Think about the people you respect, the ones who've actually built something meaningful. They didn't get there because everything went their way. They got there because they learned how to keep moving when things went wrong. They developed the ability to adapt. They built the mental strength to push through discomfort. And where did they build that? In the small moments, in the daily grind, in the repetitive work that nobody sees. You want that same strength, you build it the same way. Small actions, daily commitment, showing up when you don't feel like it. That's the gym for your mind. That's where you develop the muscle that carries you through the hard parts. And you can't skip that training. You can't fake it. You can't borrow it from someone else. You have to earn it through your own consistent effort. Here's what's beautiful about this process. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care where you came from. It doesn't care what advantages or disadvantages you have. The process works for everyone who commits to it. Small actions repeated over time create results. That's a law. That's not up for debate. The only variable is whether you're willing to trust it long enough to see it work. And most people aren't. Most people give up too early. They start strong. They're excited. They're motivated. They put in effort for a week or a month or maybe even 3 months. And when they don't see the dramatic transformation they were hoping for, they quit. They decide it's not working. They convince themselves they're the exception to the rule, but they're not. They just didn't stick around long enough to see the compound effect kick in. Because that's what happens with small, consistent actions. They compound. The first week feels like nothing. The first month feels like barely anything. But month 3 builds on month 2. Month 6 builds on month 5. And by month 12, you're not the same person who started. You've transformed. Not because of one big moment, but because of 365 small ones. That transformation is waiting for you. It's available to you right now, but you have to earn it. You have to show up. You have to do the work. You have to trust the process even when every part of you wants to quit. That's the cost, and it's non-negotiable. You either pay it or you don't. But if you don't, you need to stop wondering why your life isn't changing. You need to stop being surprised that you're in the same place you were last year, because nothing changes until you change. And you don't change through big dramatic gestures. You change through small daily choices that stack up over time. So what are you going to choose today? Are you going to take the small step, or are you going to keep waiting for the perfect moment that's never coming? Are you going to show up for yourself, Or are you going to let another day pass without moving forward? These questions matter. Not because I'm asking them, but because you are. Deep down, you know what you need to do. You know what small action you've been avoiding. You know what first step you need to take. The only question is whether you're going to take it. Whether you're going to stop overthinking and start doing. Whether you're going to trust that small is enough as long as you keep going. Because it is enough. It's more than enough. Small is how everything big begins. Small is how you win. Small is how you build the life you keep saying you want.